Welcome to Mystara for a belated look at one of its greatest villains, Crown Prince Zandor of Alphatia. I'm running a bit late as I needed some downtime to get over a nasty cold, as those who listened to my last livestream noticed. There's been quite a few bad military leaders throughout history, from Publius Quinctilius Varus managing to ignore open signs of treachery and march 3 entire Roman legions into an ambush, to George Custer deciding that his glory was far more important than believing his own scouts, and of course Generalissimo Antonio de Santa Anna de Lopez becoming so overconfident that he ordered his entire army to take a siesta right before the deciding battle in the war, despite skirmishing with the enemy army literally hours before, and then forgetting that if you make them mad enough, Texans will kill you in your sleep. Compared to Prince Zandor, all of these men were tactical geniuses. I'm Mr. Welch, and today we are looking at the psychotic man-child of Mystara. Zandor is the oldest son of Empress Ariadne, her second oldest child after his sister Eldrithila. By right of birth, the throne was hers, but her personality wasn't a good fit to rule the entire empire of Alphatia. She was friendly, but set in her ways. She did not have the patience to effectively herd the figurative cats that were the kings and queens of the Alphatian Empire. As a compromise, she asked her mother for the exclusive rulership of her family's ancestral lands in the kingdom of Thrandural. Her mother agreed, and Zandor became first in line for the throne. Of course, if his mother names someone else as her heir, then Zandor inherits no lands and is cut off from any official title. This is something he is very aware of. Zandor's personality is one of a spoiled brat, which would be acceptable if he was still a child having all of his whims fulfilled and his demands treated by royal edict. The problem is he's 35, not 3, and you would know it by just listening to him. He's petulant, he's arrogant, he rules through fear, and believes the best way to convince someone of his point of view is to yell louder. He knows he's above reprisal. He is the future emperor after all. None of his half-siblings can wield magic. His sister has removed herself from the line of succession, and his mother isn't having any children anytime soon. Zandor is confident that no one would dare raise a hand against him, lest they anger his mother. Ariadne has tried to impress on her son the importance of learning how to lead. Zandor's study of magic went fine. His arcane ability is not to be reckoned with. He's not an archmage like his mother, but he's no slouch either. But other than learning new magic from his numerous tutors or pursuing his hobby of acquiring new magical vehicles, he can't be bothered. He's ignored General Torinal's, his mother's consort's, efforts to teach him advanced military strategy. He sees no value in his half-siblings outside of political marriage fodder. He uses various tutors to teach him new spells, and then dismisses them once he has no further use for them. That is a habit of his. He uses people until he has what he wants, then can't be bothered to remember their name. His list of toadies is long. His list of allies is blank. Zandor has a great love of commissioning arcane vehicles. The more exotic, the better. He pays for the new vessels from the Alphatian coffers, something his mother discourages but hasn't put an end to yet. He has several airships, as well as numerous unique crafts of gnomish design. While flying craft are his favorite, if a vehicle is exotic enough, he will have to have it regardless of its function. Because of this, he's added a submersible, a drilling machine, and at least one ground transport to his collection. If he finds a machine that he wants that is owned by someone else, he will demand it as tribute. Failing that, he will try to buy it at a sum that is often insulting. He relies on his reputation as someone not to be crossed to bully the owner into giving in. Failing that, he will challenge the owner into a magical duel, as long as Zandor can arrange the outcome of the duel in advance. He's not above drugging his opponent immediately beforehand to make sure he is the victor. Once the original owner is dead, Zandor lays claim to the craft, as well as all of his opponent's spellbooks. His most prized possession is his flying castle, crafted for him by Alphatian artificers. It was first mentioned in the module M2, Vengeance of Alphax, where it was said to be given to a renegade king by Ariadne's son. That wording is important, as Zandor is not mentioned by name at all in the module, only his half-brother Ericol. But Zandor is confirmed as the castle's owner in the box set Dawn of the Emperors. As Vengeance was written years before Dawn was, I'm pretty sure Zandor wasn't even created yet by the writers. So ignore the module, the castle is retconned into Zandor's possession rather than Ericol's, and the box set timeline trumps the module timeline. Now that that little bit of tangled continuity has been unraveled, the castle is a 5-story marvel capable of flying almost 100 miles a day. It's not very fast for a flying craft, but this is a castle. What it can't chase down, it can blow out of the sky. It is heavily armed with siege equipment and can rotate 90 degrees a turn. The original version was defended by Pegatars and Man-Scorpions led by a Lich. But as that's a real strange mix of troops led by a man who would be abandoned by the Pegatars after his first temper tantrum, feel free to replace them with more appropriate troops. I would suggest the stock armsmen similar to the Princess Ark. Zandor loves flying his castle around, often with the rest of his vessels attached, showing off how awesome he is to his various lackeys and kiss-ups that he naturally attracts. He's caused numerous incidents with his antics while flying, such as dumping trash over the side onto cities, sometimes causing injuries and fatalities on the ground. He will also land the castle and demand the local lord hold a feast in his honor, or even a large celebration, which for the smaller lords will quickly bankrupt them. Of course, he will take whatever he wants when he's there, ranging from magic items to family valuables to adding random people to his entourage, whether willingly or not. His mother tries to make amends when these abuses are brought to her attention. However, many of these abuses are not because the aggrieved parties fear the prince's retaliation. Zandor knows he needs some support when he ascends to the throne. Because of this, he does try to gain the favor of wizards he knows to be more powerful than him. He's never challenged any one of the Grand Council of Wizards, as they are far more powerful than him, both magically and politically, at least for now. He tries to gain the support of veteran adventurers, elevating those that will back him into his entourage. He has his detractors among the Grand Council, so he is looking for those outside of their influence that he can count on if he needs to make certain political opponents disappear. The rewards he offers are substantial, as he does have the coffers of Alphatia at his disposal. Zandor has a fairly long list of enemies, and a few of them aren't even members of his own family. His grandfather Tilian IV, the former emperor, doesn't care for Zandor or any of his siblings except for Tridorian, who is currently part of a hostage exchange program in Thyatis. Zandor's grandfather knows of his numerous shortcomings, but hasn't decided exactly how to oppose him yet. General Torinol despises Zandor, but lacking magic, the general has to keep his opinions to himself. Still, if Zandor gains control of the throne, the first thing he will do is try to replace Torinol, something the army will not like at all. Eldrathilla finds her younger brother incompetent, but because of her deal has no way to oppose him. Likewise, Zandor holds his half-brother Ericol of Norwald and Tridorian in contempt, and they share the same feeling, but lacking magic, they have no claim to the throne. His biggest political enemy outside of his family is Haldimar of Hakken, who has the Empress's favor, and he recognizes Zandor's complete ineptitude. While Haldimar can't do anything to stop Zandor now, he does have the political connections to try to slow the prince's ascent to the throne if necessary. Zandor features heavily in both the 1005 and 1010 timelines. He's not any more competent in either of them. In the 1010 timeline, during the Wrath of the Immortals, Ariadna is killed early in the week without magic. Zandor prevents her from being raised from the dead and declares himself emperor, preparing to finally end Thyatis once and for all. Then Alphatia sinks beneath the waves and everyone drowns. Except Zandor, who was in the undersea kingdom of Aquas, so naturally he lives. He tries to rally the few surviving Alphatian kingdoms to his banner, calling on their patriotism and their love of the Alphatian royal family. Then he just threatens to level every nation that doesn't support him when none of them take him seriously. With the continent of Alphatia hidden away in the Hollow World, Zandor is able to create a new Alphatian empire from the surviving remnants, including the nations of Belisarius, the southern islands such as Gaiety, loyal colonies on the Isle of Dawn, and more exotic lands such as Floating R, and of course Aquas. His goal again is to expand the empire, but first to get tribute from all the remaining kingdoms. As he is one of the very few surviving powerful wizards left in the empire, he rules through threats of force rather than any real loyalty. Even then, the more powerful kingdoms such as Thothia begin to pull away from his influence. His fun is cut short when he discovers his mother is alive and well in the Hollow World, along with the rest of the nation, which is now a floating continent high above a bunch of Bronze Age civilizations, that somehow haven't been conquered by a vastly superior force filled with high-level wizards, an actual air force, and unheard-of magics. But the spell of preservation and all that, right? Ariadna is not happy with her son's tyranny, and demands he come see her immediately. He refuses, and that sets things in motion that are detailed in the Poor Wizard Almanacs. Long story short, he doesn't get to wear the crown for long. In the 1005 timeline, Zandor sees the death of General Torinol as an opportunity to showcase his awesome leadership and tactical genius, or at least the amazing talents that only exist in his head. He begs his mother to give him command of the armies as Emperor Thinkal is pressing Alphatia in Norwald, the Isle of Dawn, and even Belisarius. Ariadna has to agree, as Zandor is the heir apparent, and not giving him control of the military would cause others to doubt her choice as heir. Zandor then proceeds to lead Alphatia's armies to one crushing defeat after another. While Ariadna assigns multiple generals to assist her son, he ignores all their advice and prefers to listen to his lackeys. What follows are some of the most embarrassing defeats in military history. At the Battle of Newkirk, he storms the Thyacian lines with a force comprised of mostly poorly armed Genite slaves. The seasoned legions slaughter over 100,000 Genites before falling back due to exhaustion. However, 3 days later, the Thyacians return in force and push back the now depleted Alphatians. Zandor responds to minor Glantrian raids by keeping large numbers of the army on Alphatia proper, rather than reinforcing the front lines where they are sorely needed. When Zandor marches his army through the Troll Marshes against the warnings of his entire general staff, only to have the army mauled by repeated troll attacks, then routed by the well-prepared Thyacians, and finally to to be savaged by the trolls again during the retreat. Only after this humiliating debacle does Ariadne remove her son from command. To partially soothe his ego, Ariadne puts Zandor in charge of the military academy, in the vain hopes that he actually learns some strategy. By this time, the Empress realizes her son should never be emperor. Alphatia cannot survive as a nation under his incompetence. If the Empire's death blow doesn't come from an opportunistic Thyatis, then more than likely it would be from a self-inflicted civil war against Zandor. Fortunately, after the war, a new opportunity opens, as her son Tridorian sends word to his mother that his first child has shown magical abilities. Ariadne can now name her grandson as her heir. Of course, if Zandor finds out that he's being replaced with a 5-year-old, accidents will be arranged. Enter the player characters. Zandor is a villain, but he's not one meant to be hunted down and killed. Not that most parties could even get close to him to actually try and kill him. He's a powerful wizard, he's well guarded, and he's a head of state. Killing him would cause major repercussions. But he still needs to be stopped. He's not evil, he's not even stupid. He is a wizard after all. But he's got all the wisdom of a drunk lemming. He takes what he wants, punishes those that resist him, and never once considers possible retaliation from people more powerful than him. Because in his mind, there is no one more powerful than him. He's the kind of guy that would kill the dog of the dude you would send to kill the boogeyman. That wraps up Zandor, the Clown Prince of Alphatia. He's a great villain, because he's not your normal villain. He can even be fun to hang around with at times, before you realize his true nature. He's got a lot of enemies, and your players will definitely add their names to that list. Next week, I'm turning down the temperatures as we are headed up north to learn the secrets of runic magic, and to see if the price of power is worth it. But until next week...
Quintilis Varus, where are my eagles?